Well, hello everybody. What we've got here is the next step in fabricating up some of the pieces for our Muskoka chair. So what I've got here, this is off of the kit. This came with the kit, pre-drilled holes, everything like that, and I got the marking on it that identified it, whoops, as a tapered number 10D. This is a centerpiece for the back slat. So what we notice about the back slat is that it's tapered, which means there's wider at one end than it is at the other, and it slopes down. But it's tapered down evenly on both sides. So how do we do this? There's several things that we have to keep in mind when we're actually, doing specialty cuts on wood. How to do it fast, how to do it clean and accurate and safe above all else. Right? So safe, clean, accurate, and straight and neat and proper and all that stuff. Well, there's several different ways we could cut a taper on this. What we could do, we take this piece, lay it over, trace it, like we've already done with the legs and the arms, and you guys have done that. Everybody had a chance to do some of those pieces. But now what we've got to do is we've got to cut a very long, let me draw a line first. We have to draw a very long, straight edge. I don't have a pencil on me, that's okay. We have to cut along a very long, straight edge. Now, if I do it on the table saw, you could have a jig, okay? You could have a jig and you set it up so that as you're pushing it through on the sled that we have, or may build a whole brand new jig, a whole new sled, we can adjust the piece as it goes through the blade. It holds it on that angle and cuts off that wedge without it moving and binding with the blade. Now, we could do that. We could also go to the bandsaw. But if we go on the bandsaw and we try and follow a straight line, it will be straight-ish at best. And that's if you have experience doing it. If you guys try it, it's very easy. As you guys all know, it's very easy to go off of a straight line on your bandsaw cuts. So bandsaw can be used, but it's not ideal. The table saw, great. You can set up a jig. It just takes more time. And now we're after a little bit of speed, but staying safe. So what else could we do? We could use a router. And this is what, I had a jig all set up with all of these individual pieces pre-cut to the correct sizes, nailed down to the top of the desk. It's the top of a, follow me. It's this one, if you'll remember. Whoop, that piece right there, that tabletop with all the pieces. So what I was going to do, and what I have done, is I take a piece that is close to the exact size. Let's get back in order here. That's close to the exact size. Overlay it on top, fire a couple of brad nails to hold it in place, and then with my router and a special bit that does a cutout, I just trace around. And the bottom part of the router bit has a bearing on it that rolls along the side that it's not cutting and cuts off everything that's above it. It's one of those specialty router bits that we briefly talked about. Now we could do that, and I have the table set up for that. But what I don't like about that is that it requires a brad nail to be fired into the wood and then has to be pulled out later. You run the risk of having that piece of that nail break off because it's a very fine nail. It's possible, it's great in a pinch, but if you got to do a whole bunch, that's a lot of brad nails, a lot of pulling, a lot of extra work, and it takes away, I mean, it's fast, but then the pulling of the nails takes away from the speed. So it's not a really good technique. It's possible, and to do it safely, completely, but it's not what we're after. And then it comes to this final method that I'd like to talk about today, is using the jointer to put a taper on a leg. Now, about 2 years ago, I went to a seminar where it was a professional carpenter who showed us some really interesting tricks. How to make a circle cut on a table saw, that's a cool one. But how to put a taper on a leg of, say, a table with a jointer. And I didn't realize this was possible. And this is where the ins and outs of the trade come from. It's really, really fascinating because it's just running a piece of wood across the jointer. You're not doing any special jigs. You're not doing anything different. It's just where you start your cut. That's it. So it's actually quite simple. So let me set the table up, or this camera up. Oh, let's go to a spot that is good. Nobody said I was a professional director. Let's see. I think that's looking good right there. All right, you don't have to look at my ugly face anymore. So what we're going to do is talk about this before it starts. I've got the table set up. This right side of the table is set up to be 1/16 of an inch lower than this side of the table. So this is the side you adjust by that knob down here. Lowering this deck down means that as you run it across and then it goes up onto the higher deck, the blade is cutting at the exact same height as this side. So if this side of the deck is lower, however much lower this side is how much that blade's gonna take off. So what I've just said is, because I've got this deck set 1/16 of an inch lower, you can tell by the gauge right here, 1/16 of an inch lower, it will take off a 16th of an inch at a pass. And it will be smooth all the way across. However, and this is where that wonderful gentleman, that carpenter, talked to us and told us that if you start your piece of wood and cut 1/16 of an inch off the entire length of wood, it will just be across the board 1/16 of an inch shorter or more narrow. But if you start your cut, say 6 inches in, or however, wherever you want to start your taper, if you start your cut a little bit in and you put your piece of wood here, you drop it down. Look how far away my hands are. Far away here. And with the push stick, you run it across. Well, that means that your first cut starts here and cuts 1/16 of an inch off. After you cut your first 1/16 of an inch, you start it again. You run it over and over, and every single time you take another 1/16 of an inch. This side gets 1/16 of an inch smaller. Down, 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 down. You can actually take off a very specific amount on each side by just counting how many 1/16 of an inch. So if I want to remove a 1/2 inch, then I need 8 passes. And it's better to take off a little at a time. It's easier on the wood, and it's a lot more controlled. If you make a mistake, better to make a mistake 1/16 of an inch at a time than 1/4 or 1/8 of an inch at a time. So what I've determined, because I've done one already, is that I started this about 4 inches in, and look at the difference in these two pieces. The shadows are not my friend. Here we go. There. Look how much narrower it is at one end. And that means 10 passes on each side. So I ran this across. I started it here. I ran it across 10 times. And when I was done, I flipped it over and I did the same thing. I started at the same spot, ran it over 10 times, and it slowly whittled away that end. And I ended up with a taper. I traced it first to measure it out. And now what we have are these two pieces are even at that end, and they're even at that end. A little bit of sanding later to take off that little bit of discrepancy right there, and we are perfect. So if we get real good at this, then there's no reason we can't do what? How many passes do you think it would take to, if we set this right side of the deck down to 1/8 of an inch? 5 passes. Now it's a little bit more aggressive. I don't want to chip out the bottom of the wood, so you do it more often. You can play around with it to kind of get exactly what you're after. It is a very simple way of putting a taper on legs. I've done this for several things. I've done it for a couple of tables, and it's a tool in my toolbox that I'm going to have for a very long time. It's something that I can do now and incorporate that skill into building another project. And I'd like to finish off with telling you a story. Miss Andrea Howard, she is one of the educators upstairs. She's hilarious. You may have seen her around. She's about 6 foot tall, dark hair, and a full ball of fire of energy. She is so much fun, and she's so hilarious. But apparently her husband is a fantastic woodworker, and he's made some amazing things. She's told me about them. But just this weekend, she sent me something, a few pictures of the table he built for her family. He's still in the finishing stages of it, but the joinery techniques that he's used to join, for instance, he built all the chairs. I'll share some of these pictures with you. But the chairs, the legs how these legs attach to the seat, I've never seen it before. And what was really interesting, first off, I was blown away by his skill. It's beautiful. It's all poplar, but it's very, very nice. And it'll stain really, really well. The table is poplar, the chairs are walnut. But I'll show you pictures of what the chair, leg, and seat look like, how they're meshed together. They're never coming apart. Well, one thing I was impressed with, first thing, I was impressed beyond all belief with his skill. Secondly, I was thrilled. I was thrilled that I saw something that I looked at and thought, first off, I know a little bit about how to do that, but some of it I don't. And that to me says, I am interested in this, I like this, I need to know how to do this, I want to know, I want to know, I want to know. So now I can't wait to get this gentleman on the phone and ask him, how did you make the square bottom holes for the side recesses in your table, or in your seat top? It's amazing. And if I can, I'll attach the pictures of them to this video. It's just wonderful. But the third thing that I really, really like is that I was very proud that all the times that I've spent paying attention to what I like to do, I've picked up a skill here, I've picked up a skill there. I'm in the process of reading a book on sharpening, and it's a wealth of information that I'd like to share with you soon too. But I pick up these skills just like you do. But we all pick up these skills as we go through life and realize, oh, I didn't know how to do it, now I know how to do it. And now when I see something again, oh, I can do something there. I know how to do that. And when you try and do a project that is more complicated than you've ever done before, you'll apply all those skills. And then, oh, you'll hit another roadblock and realize, I got to learn something new because I want to. So I guess I just wanted to tell you that story so that you guys come to an understanding of life is not, let me put it this way. A lot of people will tell you life is, you are always learning, lifelong learning, lifelong learning. And at some point in your life, you may think of that phrase, lifelong learning, and go, you mean I'm always going to be in school? Oh my God, I can't believe it. It's not that. It's lifelong learning means that when you come across something that you want to do, you're going to have to learn how to do it. So position yourself in life to be around the things that you want to do. Then it's not a chore. It's not, oh, I got to learn this. It's I get to learn this. For instance, if you're into martial arts, you're going to come across a place one of these days when they open again, and you'll say, oh, I want to learn how to do this. And all the grueling effort that you're going to put into learning Muay Thai, or you're going to learn Jiu-Jitsu or whatever, you're going to put so much effort into that, you're going to build skills that you're going to carry with you because you were passionate and you were motivated to do it. So find the things you like, go down those paths, explore them, learn everything you can about them, and, well, you'll come to understand what this phrase means. If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. Because a lot of people think about working as, I have to go there. Most of my life in the trade, I spent getting up, going to work, and what I hated the most was the drive there. But once I was there, loved it. I enjoyed my job. I still do. Now this new job, I enjoy this now. I could be teaching from home. I'm in the wood shop. This is where I want to be. So I implore you all to discover where you want to be and get paid to do it. Anyway, thank you again for joining me.